Welcome back to Murder in the Black. It is your host, Steph.
And I'm MD.
Let's go ahead and get into our true crime case for today.
So grab your coffee if it's the morning, your lemonade if it's the afternoon, or your wine if it's the evening. But either way, let's get into it.
We are going to dissect a case that will definitely leave you scratching your head and wondering what happened to the individual inside of this case. We're exploring the unsettling disappearance of Cynthia Bah Traore, a devoted mother, a passionate educator, and a woman whose life took a tragic turn in 2021. Cynthia was born on July 4th, 1981 in Omaha, Nebraska. Her birth date, a symbol of freedom and independence, ironically frames a life story that will later be marked by confinement and tragedy. Cynthia was a beacon of laughter and generosity, known for always putting others before herself. Often giving away her last dollar to help someone in need, she was loved by her family and friends. A woman who excelled academically and pursued higher education at the University of Nebraska. Now, I don't know much about Nebraska, MD. I know we have a cousin who's from Omaha, but I didn't even know there's a whole lot of
I don't have a lot about it either. I know that the Cornhuskers, I know that the University of Michigan beat them, but that's about all I know.
Yeah, so shout out to y'all from Nebraska. If y'all want to drop in the comments, like, just some random facts, we would appreciate it. But after graduating, Cynthia moved to Crowley, Texas, where she embarked on a career in education. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Crowley, Texas, just so I can help y'all with landmarks. Because people say stuff and you're like, girl, where is that? You have Dallas, right? And I affectionately just say it's just Dallas, but it is officially Dallas-Fort Worth. Okay, so two large cities here. And Crowley is about...
And so that's about roughly 30 minutes or so.
Yeah. So just in terms of landmarks, that's where you guys want to look, the Dallas-Fort Worth area. She embarked on a career in education. She was passionate about teaching. And at the time of her disappearance, she was working as a substitute teacher. But education wasn't her only passion. Her faith was paramount. Cynthia was deeply involved in church, community, and she also found joy in writing and producing plays. Her life seemed full of promise, but as we know, appearances can be deceiving. Why do you think, MD, we are so obsessed with appearances? And I don't necessarily think that's tied to social media. What do you think?
No, I don't think it's tied to social media. It was happening long before social media ever came about, but it just is on display a lot on a larger platform with social media. And I think we do it because part of the reason why we do it is because we want people to believe a certain way that we hope to see ourselves, right?
Sure.
So this is how I see myself. This is what I want for myself. Kind of like I'm living in my truth, or I want to present what I hope to become, or that mentality in some ways.
Sure. And Cynthia was very much like all of us. She was a devoted mother of two boys, a role she embraced wholeheartedly. Her love for her sons was fierce, and she did everything in her power to provide for them. But her personal life was fraught with challenges. She met and married Mussolini Bah Traore, an immigrant, but the marriage soon soured. Cynthia found herself shouldering the financial burdens while Mussolini refused to find stable employment. To make matters worse, she discovered he was using false information to work in the United States, and then the ultimate betrayal. She learned he was cheating on her. And this just brings back all type of flashbacks of Portia from Real Housewives. If you know, you know. I mean, that's crazy. MD, I know you don't know everything about immigrant law, but like, can you go to jail for that? What?
Oh, absolutely. Like, and honestly, immigrants can go to jail a lot quicker than, regular citizens.
Sure.
Their laws are a little bit more restrictive in a sense. And so, he may have been here on a green card and I don't know the details. We didn't find that wasn't, readily available in our research, but he may have been here on a green card or, whatever the circumstances may be. And if he wasn't being completely honest, that's a easy.
Right. And it
plane
seemed,
ticket.
yeah, and it seemed like she was trying to work it out, despite, like, the challenge of you not working.
You
Still
lying.
gonna try to hold it together,
Right. Like, I'm giving you all these chances, and then now you gonna cheat on me?
sir. And then you gonna falsify documents. I don't want any
Let's
parts.
not do it.
So by 2021, Cynthia had enough. She was in the final stages of a divorce with the decree imminent. She had already moved out and was living with her eldest son while her youngest stayed temporarily.
It's his father who lived in Fort Worth, Texas. So Mussolini and Cynthia didn't have any kids together. Her kids were by a different man. And so the youngest son was staying with his father in Fort Worth, Texas, as Cynthia was just getting on her feet and preparing for that final divorce.
Okay, so life was starting to look up for Cynthia as she prepared to close this difficult chapter.
On February 3rd, 2021, everything changed. Cynthia told her eldest son, who was staying with her, that she was heading out to run some errands and would be back around 7:30 p.m. But 7:30 came and went, and Cynthia never returned. Concerned to turn to panic as hours with no word from her continued to roll by. Now, her son, increasingly worried about where his mom was, called his grandmother, which is Cynthia's mom, who in turn reached out to the rest of the family because it wasn't like Cynthia to be out of touch, especially when it came to her children. Cynthia's father reached out to Mussolini to see if he had heard from her, and Mussolini told her father something pretty unexpected. He stated that Cynthia was in the hospital. Now, while this news was concerning, obviously, to the family, it also brought a strange sense of relief because at least she wasn't missing, right? However, after the days of contacting the hospital over and over again and not getting any update on how Cynthia was or why she was in the hospital, they were met with confusion because they learned from a nurse who just finally took pity on the family that Cynthia had never been admitted to the hospital. Bomb drop. Steph,
How do you get those things wrong?
That just seems real intentional. It seems real intentional. Why would you tell the family that she was in the hospital
if she's not, and didn't confirm that she was indeed?
Okay, because maybe he thought she was. Right? Okay. Now, the final divorce decree hearing was set for February 5th, 2021. Cynthia, of course, didn't show up, but Mussolini did. And he told the court the same thing he told her family. She was in the hospital. This prompted the judge to reschedule the hearing. But the family's relief turned back to panic. Cynthia wasn't in the hospital. She was, in fact, missing. So they immediately contacted the Crowley Police Department to report her disappearance. A detective was assigned to the case, but the investigation was flawed, Steph, right from the start. He promised the family that Cynthia's case would be highlighted in the media and he was going to reach out to Crime Stoppers and share her information with them. But days passed and the family learns that not only did he not contact the media, but he also withheld crucial information from Crime Stoppers, which delayed their ability to alert the public. Well, Steph, as we cover cases like these, and I just think back to why we ever started this podcast, what are your thoughts about that? Like, what do you think about the police not just failing to do their job, but then actually impeding the ability of others to look for her?
I just think that it's painful. It's painful to see. And it's the need for us to rally together as a community and allies as well to come together because we place so much blind trust in these community helpers. I mean, and I even doctors, because you think, okay, they have the expertise. They know exactly what to do in this particular situation. But often they could be lying, they could have their own motivations, or they could be discriminated against you. And so I think it's just so important for us to advocate for one another, advocate for our family, advocate for our community, which is why we have Murder in the Black, so that we can continue to tell these stories, because we can't depend on main media and sadly not even the police to help us in situations like this.
For sure. So 6 days after Cynthia went missing, the media finally picked up on the story. But on that very same day that the media alerts the community about Cynthia's disappearance, Texas was hit by one of the largest ice storms in its history. The storm, which plunged the state into chaos, eclipsed the coverage of Cynthia's disappearance. Amid the blizzards and blackouts, her case was all but forgotten by the media. Steph, do you remember this ice storm?
Yeah, it was terrible because I mean what's so funny is that you have some people who are like, y'all don't get snow and we get like ice once a year, but it's never anything that's going to shut us down for weeks. Like it'll shut us down for a day because don't nobody know how to drive.
Exactly.
But I mean, I could just remember being like, what is happening?
Right. And I want to be clear. When she says nobody knows how to drive, really what it is we don't have the infrastructure that northern cities and northern states and eastern states have, that when it snows or it ices or whatever in those states, you guys have those big, huge trucks that just come right on out and lay down that sand that allows you to continue to drive on it. We have a few of those. We don't have many. So it takes, like, let's say if you guys have 100 in your state, let's say we may have 10. That's how insignificant of a number it is, because it doesn't make sense for us to invest in that kind of infrastructure when we don't get ice like that or snow like that. Also, we get ice, and not just any ice. We get black ice. So this kind of ice is the ice you can't even see. So it's not so much that we can't drive, which some of us can't here in this state, but it also is compounded by the fact that we don't have the infrastructure. So when this storm happened, it took us out because it was a big blizzard, and simultaneously our electrical grids were knocked off the map. So you may or may not have had electricity, which I was one of the homes that didn't have it. Luckily, Steph did. So my family came and stayed with Steph.
Right. I mean, and we were good all the way up until like maybe the last couple of days, and our parents' house flooded. Our pipe burst in our house like the tail end part of the storm. So I mean, we just don't. Our houses don't have, the way, as you were speaking about the infrastructure, like they do plumbing and things differently depending on the weather conditions, and we just did not have it. Like it was a natural disaster.
Absolutely. And so you can imagine that while all of this is going on and the media finally is saying, hey, let's tell the story of Cynthia, even if you had the most compassionate people that wanted to get her story out, it just was completely eclipsed by the fact that this historical storm was hitting our state. So 12 days after Cynthia was last seen, the Grandview Police Department reached out to the Crowley Police Department with a critical update. They had Cynthia's cell phone in their custody. Now, according to the family, the Grandview police informed Crowley that on the night Cynthia disappeared, a gas station clerk by the name of Ali had contacted them, and he reported that a woman had left her cell phone on the counter after she left the store. The police obviously responded, and they retrieved both the cell phone and surveillance footage from both inside and outside the gas station. Now, this footage captured Cynthia entering the store, making a purchase, and then leaving. Despite the significance of this evidence, though, the family only gained access to 2 of the tapes after they filed a Freedom of Information Act request because the police refused to share the footage with them. Now, the tapes, however, they clearly show Cynthia's vehicle driving away from the gas station, which marks the last known sighting of her. Now, uncertain about what other footage might reveal, Cynthia's family continues to demand answers from the police, pushing them to uncover the truth and bring Cynthia home.
And all of this is just, I know you are like literally shaking your head, like, what is happening? But on February 16th, 2021, a breakthrough occurred. A Texas Ranger found Cynthia's blue Mazda CX-5 abandoned on Interstate 35 near mile marker 355 in Waco, Texas. About an hour away from the gas station where she was last seen, the car had plenty of gas and the keys were inside. But it wasn't until a cousin saw a social media report on February 25th that the family even knew the car had been found. I'm talking about, like, you're not going to keep the family in the loop? No? Okay. So the police, who had been called every day by the desperate family for updates, hadn't bothered to inform them about this crucial discovery. The family demanded answers. Had the car been dusted for fingerprints? I mean, because usually in situations like this, you have to have a forensic analysis done on the car because that should be protocol. I mean, okay. So the police claimed they had, but refused to share the results, further deepening the family's mistrust of the police. They were determined, however, to find answers. Cynthia's family launched their own investigation. Come on, Cynthia's family. They discovered that local labs were initially willing to test the car for DNA, but later backed out after speaking with the Crawley police, citing concerns about the evidence admissibility in court. During their search for answers, the family spoke with Ali, the gas station clerk who had supposedly turned Cynthia's phone over to the police. What he told them was shocking. He remembered Cynthia, but contrary to what police said, she hadn't left her phone on the counter. And even more concerning, he never contacted the Grandview police. Armed with this information, the family confronted the police. On March 4th, 2021, Cynthia's mother received an email from the Grandview police with a new version of the story. Cynthia had mistakenly gotten into a stranger's car at the gas station and left her phone behind. The driver then supposedly contacted the police.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not side-eyeing your phone or whatever device you're listening to, I don't, because I know I had a major side eye at this stuff. That is such a stark change in the story. And this sudden change in the narrative left the family reeling with questions. They questioned why the story had changed and why police seemed so disinterested in finding Cynthia. When they reached out to Lieutenant Tate, who was overseeing the case, he coldly told them, Cynthia is not coming home anytime soon. Just put your head around it. She is not coming home anytime soon. I mean,
what do you mean put my head around it?
That is completely insensitive.
Yes.
The family now firmly believes that the police have written Cynthia off as a voluntary disappearance. They were ignoring the red flags that suggested any kind of foul play. Lieutenant Tate, however, denies this and states to Dateline that we searched her house, the car, we used a drone in the area that the car was recovered. It's a very rural area, lots of cops, barns, those kinds of things. We also used crannies and didn't come up with anything. The family believes differently. Despite their best efforts, they have been met with indifference and hostility at nearly every turn. They spoke with the people at the gas station that saw Cynthia that night, and they state that Cynthia was acting odd, like something wasn't quite right. Her family acknowledges that Cynthia started having mental health issues in 2016 as a result of some sort of trauma. And they revealed this fact to the police and told them that they believe it's possible that Cynthia was experiencing some symptoms on the day she disappeared. And Steph, if you've seen the footage of her in the actual store, it does seem like when she's standing in front of the store clerk that something is just like, she doesn't seem to be all the way right. Like, I don't know her, so it's kind of hard to, again, get that baseline, but it does seem like something's off. We can all tell when someone seems off, whether you know them or not, right? Now, although the family shared this information with the Crawley police in hopes that it would arm them with information to help them find Cynthia, they believed it acted as a double-edged sword against them. Because Cynthia's mental health, they felt like it was a blinding piece of information that allowed the police department to write off Cynthia as if it was a voluntary disappearance. Now, Lieutenant Tate denies this allegation.
As of today, Cynthia Bah Traore remains missing. The Crowley Police Department maintains that this is a cold case, but her family refuses to give up. In May 2021, they managed to involve the FBI, that has yielded no new leads. There is a $50,000 reward for information leading to Cynthia's whereabouts, and her family continues to search, hoping against hope to bring her home. And before we get into ways that you can help, I want to discuss some theories that are out there on the internet through articles about what possibly could have happened to her. The first theory is that she was met with foul play from her ex or soon to be ex-husband. It'd be what was kind of the theory behind that.
If you recall, Mussolini Bah Traore misled, intentionally or unintentionally, the family as to where Cynthia was in those critical moments. So like her last known sighting was on February 3rd. And February 3rd was when they reached out to Mussolini. Mussolini told them that she was in the hospital. Now, my question, Steph, is did he intentionally mislead them? Or maybe it's possible, and this kind of goes to my question about whatever happened or what was on the cell phone footage. Or did he really think she was in the hospital? Maybe Cynthia called him and said, I'm taking myself to the hospital. I'm not feeling well. And so he really believed that she was in the hospital. And so he shared that information. It's just not clear. And I just have so many questions. And I think because the police have not been completely forthcoming with the family, we don't have a lot of these answers. And the question, to me, I get why the police, Steph, don't release all information. We learned from previous cases that there's just certain information that they want to keep close to the hip because that's going to lead them to solving the case further down the road. But then there's some information that we just need to get out because we need to be able, the public will do a better job of assisting you in finding answers when they have a little bit more answers. Was Mussolini ruled out as a suspect?
Right, we don't know. We don't know, and because we don't know, I think that creates just a lot of mystery, and it seems like the family, they don't know either. Of course, you have the mental health crises theory, and we kind of touched on that in our episode where we said she had experienced some type of trauma. What we don't know, and I don't even think we need to know. But this theory stems from reports of Cynthia's erratic behavior at the gas station where she was last seen. And they say, at least on the internet, which we can not confirm, but they say that she had a history of bipolar disorder and something may have happened as a result of that. Also, you cannot discount or discredit that it was a voluntary disappearance, that she just decided to voluntarily get up and say deuce to her two kids.
Right. And I think that there would be some evidence to back up that voluntary disappearance. For example, did she pull a bunch of money out of her bank leading up to the days of her disappearance? Has she used her credit cards ever since February the 3rd?
Right.
It's just, we know that her car was found. We also know, and we didn't state this in the podcast, but we do know that the police believe that her car was found somewhere or placed there somewhere between the time of February the 11th and February 15th. So she would have had to go missing around the time of this ice storm. And if you don't have a vehicle, you got a plane ticket, you are on foot, you had somebody else pick you up. It just seems like there would be something to be able to show that she voluntarily disappeared.
Yeah, for sure. And when you think about, a lot of times in true crime, some things just don't make sense, right? And we can't, because we don't have a whole lot of information, we can't, with certainty count that out. It still is a possibility, but as you mentioned, there is no hardcore evidence that she was trying to voluntarily disappear, which is what her family claims. Now, of course, the theory that, and I don't want to say it's a theory because with certainty, the Crowley and Grandview police departments definitely mishandled this case. So maybe they know more than what they're saying. Maybe someone on the police force has a motivation for something. I mean, just how they didn't tell the family and the family had to find out via social media. I mean, it's just sloppy.
I mean, even the car, right? Like, again, I think I can understand withholding certain information because you're like, I got to keep that close to the hip. I can't share that with you. I understand that. But when I look at like things like, I'm begging you to do DNA testing and fingerprint dusting on the vehicle. Like like the family literally had to raise hell to get that done, or to get the police to say, yes, we will do it. Yes, we have done it. And it's just like, okay. And then, no, I'm not going to reveal to you the results of that. Again, understand why you can't reveal all things, but something. Hey, we did a DNA testing, and right now it doesn't point us to anything, conclusively, but, we'll keep you in the loop if it ever, is to reveal something down the line. And then when you think about how they impeded other labs from doing testing, independent testing, like, you're gonna now take away my ability to try to fight and advocate for my family member. It just seems like there were moments in this case where I'm watching it and I'm like, is the police involved? Is there something that they're hiding?
Right, because y'all looking very much like an enemy.
You're looking sus, because why are you telling me one story and then it comes to find out that story isn't even true? If Ali didn't call you, why would you say Ali called me?
Because make it make sense.
It doesn't. Because
there is no proper explanation for that. Like, there's none. There's not one.
And then why haven't you given me all the surveillance footage? Why did I have to beg and fight and plead to get the two that I got? It just seems off. I'm not saying that they had something to do with it, but I'm saying something ain't right.
Something in the water ain't clean. It just isn't. So I want to mention this last theory that is out there, and I'm going to put in the source material exactly where I got it. But there was another disappearance that happened in the Fort Worth area, not around the time that Cynthia vanished, but they shared a lot of similarities. Eodius Harris was last seen on June 16, 2021, near Fort Worth. The last known locations for both individuals were at convenience stores or gas station. Eodius Harris was captured on surveillance camera footage leaving his apartment and getting into his work truck with his two dogs. Similarly, we know Cynthia was last seen on security footage at a Shell gas station. In both cases, the missing persons' vehicles were found abandoned shortly after their disappearance. The abandoned vehicles of both Eodius and Cynthia contained personal belongings. In Eodius's case, his keys and wallet were found inside of the car. And for Cynthia, we know her keys, and she was officially gassed up, so there was no reason why it would be stopped there along with her keys. They both have mental health issues. In Eodius's case, he was seen talking with two other people who were also out with their dogs, and they confirmed that what he was saying to them at the time just didn't make any sense, and he was acting very unusual. We know about Cynthia's case of mental issues from past trauma. In both cases, there are suspicions of foul play. The circumstances surrounding Eodius's disappearance have led investigators to suspect there is indeed foul play. So they know definitively something for sure happened to him. Similarly, the unclear circumstances of Cynthia's disappearance have raised concern, although her case is currently classified as missing. So, that's the only difference there. I wanted to say that both of them were educators, and they just seemed to up and disappear without any known places to where they would be going. So, there is a theory that could these two be connected? They had a lot of similarities within their case. And I mean, we'll never truly know, but there could be a possible connections because, as I just said, their cases shared a lot of similarities.
Either way, what we do know is that There are many holes in this case, too many unanswered questions, and Cynthia's family deserves answers. Cynthia deserves justice. And so we are asking our listeners to help. If you live in the Crowley or Waco area, or if you know anything that could help bring Cynthia home, please contact the Crowley Police Department at 817-297-2276. Or you can contact the FBI at 817-984-0320. Or simply submit your tip anonymously at findcynthia.com. Now, Cynthia Bah Traore was last seen on February 3rd, 2021 at a Shell gas station in Grandview, Texas on 1003 Kreiner Street and Interstate 35 at approximately 10:35 p.m. She is 5'6". She weighed 160 pounds and was last seen wearing black pants, a navy blue shirt, a brown hat, and carrying a red purse with plaid pattern on one side. She was 39 at the time of her disappearance and may use her maiden name, Alvoid.
Takeaway. And I think takeaway is always hard in missing person cases because there is no definitive end. We are still searching, but obviously I believe there's something that we can take away here. I believe that community support has to always remain engaged. And our platform, similarly to other platforms who advocate for the missing, advocate for Black people who are missing, I think this is the way that we can garner the community support that can be seen in cases like Cynthia's and others that we've covered here on our podcast. So I just want to continue to just ask you to share this episode. When we say share if you care, I mean, I know it sounds cute and everything, but I really mean it. Like, share this episode because you never know how that can, conjure up somebody to come forward. You hear it all the time. After 20 years, he couldn't hold the secret no more. I think we all have a part to play. And I just want to commend Cynthia's family for the continued awareness that they have brought forth. I know this case has been done on a lot of different platforms, but I first heard of the case on Missing in America Dateline, which is a podcast that I listen to often, on their first season, and just being utterly disturbed by how the police handled this investigation. So I just want to encourage you, as well as encouraging myself, to continue to advocate for people in our community, but just us as a human species. We all need each other. Indy?
I just want to highlight, though, that recently Steph texted me and was like, hey, go watch American Murder, the Laci Peterson story. And you guys have probably seen or heard something about Scott Peterson and the Laci Peterson story and how she went missing while she was pregnant and how her husband had something to do with it and was inevitably sentenced to death for her and their unborn son. And it just, watching that, and then on the heels of watching that, learning about this case, the stark difference in both of them. In Laci's case, the community, not just the community, but the nation rallied to find her. And not just rally to find her, but to scream of the injustice of her being missing, to raise hell and, about the fact that this woman who was vulnerable and pregnant could be missing. And then to go to this case where, Cynthia wasn't pregnant and, she didn't have some of the same, situations that were going on with Laci, but she was a human. And she deserved to be found. And her family had to scream to the heavens to get support. And it's infuriating, to be quite honest. I could not watch this show, learn of these details, research this case without feeling some level of anger that Cynthia's family has to still to this day fight for justice. They fought the police at every turn. And even now, when they finally got the FBI involved, they still are fighting. The FBI is not doing all that they, quote unquote, should or shouldn't be doing. It just seems to be a fight. And I don't, we can talk about the systematic injustice of that. We can talk about, the why that is. And we can go into the whole, down the whole rabbit trail of all of the different theories as to why that exists. But at the end of the day, we just simply need to rally for one another. Whether you're white, black, male, female, it doesn't matter. You don't deserve to go missing without a trace. You don't deserve to be killed, and you deserve to have the same level of advocacy from community helpers as anybody else in the community. And that's just, that's not a takeaway as much as it is just my frustration in watching this case.
Oh, yeah, definitely just a call to action to remind others that we all have a responsibility to one another, but especially those who say that they want to do a job like being a police officer. I mean, my God, why do we have to state the obvious?
I need you to do your job.
I'm just
do your job.
So make sure you share, if you care, this episode with friends and family. I wanted to also encourage you guys to give us a rating. I know that, some of you are like, I can't do the paid subscription, and it's cool. It's cool. If you can do it, you can do it. Times is hard. Life is rough. Groceries are high. But if you really enjoy our content just on a weekly basis, we just ask that you simply just drop us a rating, give us 5 stars, let us know that you care. And until next time, this is Murder in the Black. We'll see you next week.